primary ignition.
Welcome to Unlimited Power. My name is D-Rod, and this is my guide to updating your Luke Skywalker starter deck. And these guides are here to help you build Luke on a budget or without a budget. So we're going to be taking a look at what Luke does, what the starter deck does, and go into some of my recommendations for a fun, friendly budget deck, as well as another fun, semi-competitive Luke Skywalker starter deck upgrade. So again, these are my recommendations. Of course, everyone's going to have their own versions and would like to tweak, but this is a great way to set up if you're just not sure where to go next with your Luke Skywalker deck and what cards will work well with him. So to begin, let's start looking at who Luke Skywalker is. He costs 6 resources to be deployed, so that means he can come out on turn 5. He attacks for 4 and has 7 health. His attack and health are pretty decent. You would love to see his attack be a little bit stronger, maybe only a 5. That way there's only a 2-point deficit between his attack and his health, but that's okay. And on attack, he does give another unit a shield token. So Luke isn't the same type of powerhouse like Vader. He needs other units in play in order to benefit from his attack. Yes, you can always swing with just Luke if you would like, but keeping units in play is going to make sure you're maximizing what Luke does, and you're going to get better value from him. Now, when Luke is not a leader unit, he has a very similar ability to Vader with a couple of conditions. As an action, you pay 1 resource, exhaust Luke, and give a shield token to a white aspect unit you played this phase. So it is slow. Luke is a very slow type of playstyle and works better in things that are similar to like a mid-range control, which is what we will be doing today with these 2 decks. So what is the starter set up to do? It's set up to lengthen the life of your units using these shields. Shielded units have a possibility of surviving up to 2 or more actions. They may even stay in the field longer than most units would and move on to the next action phase. That's the kind of value you want with shielded units. Next is it has the ability of controlling the amount of damage your base receives. It does this by playing Sentinel units and the Restore ability, allowing you to heal your base when you attack with Restore characters, or using Sentinel to prevent units from immediately attacking your base. And lastly, it slowly damages your opponents. Again, this is kind of more of that mid-range control style setup that Luke is going for, where over time your units have done enough damage to your opponent that they can continue to slowly swarm and attack your opponent's base. So what are the staples in a Luke Skywalker deck? What are the cards that you should probably always keep with Luke? First one's going to be his twin, Leia Organa. She is not blue, but she pairs really well with Luke in this yellow aspect, because she's a 2-drop that allows you to either ready a resource when you play her or exhaust a unit. Exhausting your unit's probably the most powerful aspect of Leia. This can take care of leader units, large ships in your space arena, or anything that you just cannot deal with at the moment. Because you're playing a little bit more of an early mid-game style, Leia is the kind of card you hold on to till later when units come into play that are larger than your average ones, and you need to just remove them from the battlefield for a phase. Next is Yoda. Yoda's a great unit who is a 3-drop with a white aspect token, or white aspect on it, so you can put a shield on this unit with Luke. You can also heal your base with that Restore ability. As a reminder, with Restore, you can just attack, and no matter if you're attacking a unit, a Sentinel unit, or an opponent's base, you will heal your base for 2. And when defeated, you're allowed to draw a card. So, great choice. Next is Shoot First. Now, Shoot First is amazing because it can protect your units by giving you a +1/+0 and attacking and dealing combat damage before your opponent's unit can return that damage. That's really great with shielded units, because if you do have to take a point of damage, it'll hurt the shield. But if you're able to kill a unit immediately with Shoot First, you can hold on to your shield, getting more value out of that your shielded unit. And lastly is the Restored ARC 170. A great 2-drop you should play on your second turn, put a shield on it, and allow it to just sit there, getting you damage and slowly healing your base. This will pull your opponent's focus a little bit more to deal with an annoying unit like this. So let's go into the Luke Skywalker budget deck I've created and what I think could be a fun time for you and the people you play with. So the goal of this deck is to keep units in play using shields and events. The shields again are going to extend the lifespan of your units. Hopefully they're going to survive more than 2 actions. If your opponent focuses on a shielded unit, they're usually going to have to spend 2 cards or 2 actions to deal with it. And that is a good trade. So I think, that's the style we're going to keep with. And we're going to use events that are going to remove obstacles out of your way, clearing the board for your shielded units and non-shielded units to attack through the ground arena. Next, we want to have consistent tempo for playing cards and attacking. You may be asking, well, what is tempo? Tempo means that you are constantly building on what you did before. It's you may hear it called like building momentum, or you want to get the machine going, or you want to get things rolling in card games. That's exactly what this does. If on turn 1 you can play a unit and shield it, and then on turn 2 you can play a unit and attack with a unit, and you end turn 2 still with 2 units in play, then you go into turn 3 and you play another unit with a shield and attack again with at least 1 more unit, you're keeping tempo. No matter what, you're always attacking and you're always playing a unit down. If your units survive and you get to attack with 2 on a turn, even better. Your tempo continues to rise. So this is what we mean about having consistent tempo, and a lot of that has to do with the value, or the resource cost of the cards you put in, and a certain amount of them to keep on what they would say is called curve. So that's the strategy of the deck. Let's look at how we do it. First, we're going to add a restored ARC 170, which you've already talked about. We're going to add an extra Chewbacca here. Chewbacca is amazing with this Sentinel ability because his second ability says when he's attacked, you ready him. The best way to use Chewbacca is to attack immediately after he readies. Don't wait for an opponent to swing on him again. You need to get the value on Chewbacca, so have him attack that base for 3. Only attack a unit if you feel like you have to do it in the situation, but for the most part, the units are going to attack Chewbacca on its own. Next is Takedown, a great card to deal with certain, leaders that only have 4 health, like Iden Versio or IG-88. This also will just get past opponents' shields and just immediately defeat the unit as long as there's 5 HP or less. We've already discussed Yoda, and we've already discussed Shoot First. Let's talk about Crafty Smuggler. Now, this card does not have a white aspect token on it, but it is a unit that comes into play with a shield, meaning it's going to quicken the amount of time to get the result you want when you play it. So rather than you taking 2 actions to shield your unit using Luke's ability and a resource, you can just play the Smuggler. The Smuggler is a great turn 1 drop if you don't have a 1-cost unit to shield. Next is Ezra Bridger, a Force user who's also a Spectre, who when he attacks, you can look at the top card of your deck, and you can leave the card there, you can discard the card if you know you don't need it, or if you have the resources, you may play it immediately after he completes the attack. So this could be great when you need to play maybe a lightsaber on your next unit and you're speeding that up, quickening your actions, or maybe you just need to play like a Yoda. Again, you are going to quicken your pace of playing cards with a card like Ezra. Next is Kanan Jarrus, one of my favorite cards in the set. He's a 4-cost white aspect unit that hits for 4 with a health of 5. Now, here's where he gets better. So he's a Spectre, he's a Force, he's a Jedi, he's a Rebel, all the right things. But when he attacks, he discards 1 card from the top of the defending player's deck. For each friendly Spectre unit you control, this includes him. So this means he's going to remove a card from your opponent's deck. You're going to see what that card is, giving you some knowledge. You're also going to be throwing something away that your opponent was probably hoping for. Not only that, based on the amount of aspect icons on those cards that he discards, you will heal that much as long as they're different ones. So that means as long as you have Kanan, you have the possibility of healing your base by 2 and making him discard 1 card while also attacking. He's a great card to have, which is why Ezra also makes sense to pair him with. Next, Wilderness Fighter. Similar to Crafty Smuggler, just a 3-drop, so a great card to play on turn 2 if you don't have a 2-cost unit that you can put into play and put a shield on. This will speed up your process. extend the life of the units you have. Next is the Ghost, another Spectre unit that costs 6. An amazing one, if you ask me. It's a 5/5 vehicle that goes into your space arena, and it comes into play with a shield, and it immediately shields a Spectre unit. So you can shield Kanan or Ezra when you play this card, and every time it attacks, you can continue to shield Spectre units. The more shields you have, the difficult it is for your opponent to get through without them having to sideboard or use Saboteur cards. And last is the Forces with me. Choose a friendly unit and give it 2 experience tokens to it. If you control a Force user, which you should, you can also give a shield token to the chosen unit, and then they attack immediately. That's pretty cool. So imagine playing this on Kanan, right? You pay 4 resources. You play it on Kanan. Kanan now gets 2 experience tokens, making him hit for 6. He also has a shield, and he's going to attack immediately. He attacks your opponent's unit, kills it, and takes no damage himself. While attacking, he also discarded cards from your opponent's deck and healed your base. So that's an upgrade, a shield, an attack, a discard, and a heal ability, all for 4 resources in one action. There's a lot of value there. So these are the cards that I would recommend to upgrade your budget Luke deck. And the strategy here when playing it is to keep units in play using shields and events. Use the events to kind of protect your shielded units from bigger ones or difficult units that are giving you trouble. Have consistent tempo for playing cards and attacking, meaning make sure that you're putting in units and shielding them correctly. Don't just put out a 3-cost unit because you have 3 resources. If you can shield the unit that turn, play slow. And lastly, discontinue playing resources after 6. This deck will not have any cards that are higher than 6. You can go up to 7 if you need to with resources, but the value of most of these cards allow you to play 2 cards most of the time every turn, and you'd rather keep cards in your hand so you can have some advantage over your opponent. These are the cards I'd recommend removing. A lot of one-ofs, a lot of sentinels, a lot of ambush. The sentinels are just kind of slow you down, as most sentinels don't have the white aspect on them, so they can't get shielded. And the one that does has some stipulations on it, which would be the Vigilant Honor Guard. So we also removed a lot of the ambush abilities because it's essentially acting as a kill event in your deck. You'd rather keep units that are going to stay in play a little longer, that you can shield and work more to your advantage as far as tempo. So let's move on to the master deck. So if you're looking at updating your stuff and you want to use rares, even legendaries, this would be some of my suggestions. It is going to be similar to what I suggested on the budget, using some similar styles. So you're actually not going to see that many legendaries recommended in this deck. Now, you could play legendaries, which is fine. There's a reason I didn't add cards to this, like the Luke Skywalker unit or the Redemption, because it's just a little bit above the curve of the deck. This deck is still going to try to stay within 6 resources because it's more of a mid-range aggro tempo style deck. By the time you get to 6 resources, you should have your opponent below 15 to 12 health, and these last couple turns should be what you need to get through. So you can always add those legendary cards like Luke and Redemption into the sideboard because I do think they're great cards, but you only really need to play them when your opponent's playing more control than you. If you're playing more mid-range and aggro, you'd want to stick to more of my recommendation. So let's take a look at what the goal of the deck is. You're still keeping units in play using shielded events. You still want consistent tempo for playing cards and attacking, and you want to use the Force user synergies to strengthen your units and increase their time on the board. So we've already saw some Force users earlier with Kanan and Ezra, and we're going to just be adding a couple more here. So again, we're going to start with the Restored ARC, and we're going to already add Obi-Wan Kenobi in here. So Obi-Wan's going to give you Sentinel. This is going to give you 2 Obi-Wans in your deck. And when he dies, you can give experience tokens to a unit. And if it's a Force user, draw a card. Good value. It's still 6. You're not playing that many 6 drops, so it shouldn't throw off your curve. We've already talked about Takedown, Yoda, Shoot First. And here we're going to throw in the Jedi lightsabers. So already I'm going to tell you we're replacing Luke's lightsabers with the Jedi ones. Luke's lightsabers are great. They cost 2. However, the Jedi lightsabers are little bit stronger. You can have multiple of them out. You'll have more Force users to put them on. And their effects are going to be able to keep your units alive a little bit longer because they give the defender -2, -2 when you attack. So, Crafty Smuggler we've discussed. Ezra Bridger and Kanan Jarrus all work well, again, Force users in synergy with the Spectre ability. Speaking of Spectre, Chopper is the card we're going to really throw in here. Chopper's a great rare to add to your deck. He's called a Metal Menace for a reason because when he attacks, you discard a card from the defending player's deck, and if it happens to be an event, you exhaust a resource that players controls. That means Chopper has the ability of slowing down your opponent and removing cards from their deck. These are two things that are definitely going to put your opponent on tilt and will distract them, and they'll probably want to take out Chopper pretty quickly. Luckily, you can shield them on the first turn when you play him. The more Spectre units you play, the better it is for Kanan, and Chopper also has the Spectre bonus of Raid 1. Speaking of Spectres, we're still sticking with the Ghost, and we're adding It Binds All Things. If we're playing Force users, It Binds All Things not only heals the damage from a unit. If you have a Force user in play, you can shoot that 3 damage somewhere else. So this helps with clearing the board and keeping your units alive, which is the goal of the deck. And we're still going to run with the Forces with me. We've already talked about how good this card is. And lastly is Wilderness Fighter, a unit that comes in play with shield. So what's the strategy behind playing the Master Luke deck? One, you want to keep units alive by using shields and events. Then you want to have consistent tempo for playing cards and attacking. And you want to use events and layer to control difficult units. Protect units like Chopper and Kanan with the shields. Their other abilities can really make a difference in your matchups. They both come out pretty early, with Chopper coming out first. Keeping him alive can benefit you, again, if you're slowing down your opponent by removing their events. Attack first with these units. Spectre units have a couple abilities that are going to extend the life of other units and maybe give you some other options like Ezra. And then you want to attack into enemy units, with shielded ones. Try to keep an empty ground arena. You are not going to suffer by losing a shield. However, you may just kill one of their units and set them back. So that's kind of the better way to do with a little bit more of an aggro mid-range deck. And again, you want to discontinue playing resources after 6 because you're not playing anything higher than 6. These are all the cards that I would recommend you take out of your deck. You will see certain things like C-3PO, Chewbacca, a couple things that were different from the previous deck, but these would be my recommendations. There you go. That's how I would upgrade these decks in a budget and a master series. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you have a great time playing these. Let me know in the comments. Please feel free to like and subscribe. If you would like to see more budget videos, let me know. And lastly, links to these decks are in the description below. And may the Force be with you.